The Alpha King's mouth claimed hers in front of 300 witnesses, and Bobby Richards felt his entire world detonate. Not a greeting, not protocol. This was possession, raw, deliberate, unforgiving. Lucas Peters' fingers tangled in Tina Jester's hair, and somewhere in the shocked silence, Bobby heard the sound that would haunt him forever. His new mate's broken sob as she realized she'd never stood a chance against a ghost he'd never stopped loving. Bobby Richards had made exactly 3 mistakes in his life. The first was falling in love with Tina Jester when he was 22 and stupid enough to believe in forever. The second was letting Lucas Peter take her without a fight. The third, the one currently squeezing his hand with trembling fingers as they approached the Meridian Tower's golden entrance, was bringing Anna Brown to the Winter Solstice Gala. "You're shaking," Anna whispered, her blue eyes searching his face with concern that made his chest tighten with guilt. At 23, she still had that earnestness, that unshakable faith that everything would work out if you just tried hard enough. She didn't understand pack politics, didn't know that some wounds never healed, that some losses carved themselves so deep into your bones that 3 years might as well be 3 seconds. "Just cold," Bobby lied, watching his breath fog in the December air. New York winter had teeth, but the ice creeping through his veins had nothing to do with weather. The doors opened, releasing a wave of warmth and golden light and the unmistakable scent of wolf hierarchy, dominance and submission layered like expensive perfume. Bobby's wolf stirred uneasily, recognizing territory it had abandoned, battles it had fled. A younger version of himself would have walked in with his head high, proud to show off the beautiful omega on his arm. But that younger Bobby had died the night Lucas claimed Tina. They stepped into the grand hall, and immediately Bobby felt it. The weight of 100 stares, the ripple of recognition moving through the crowd like a shockwave. Whispers started before they'd crossed the threshold. "Is that Bobby Richards? I thought he left the city." After what happened with, "Look who he brought. Does she know?" Anna's grip tightened. "Bobby, everyone's staring." Because they were. The grand hall of the Meridian Tower was a masterpiece of old-world elegance meeting supernatural power. Gilded columns soaring 30 feet to vaulted ceilings painted with scenes of wolf mythology. Chandeliers dripping with crystals that caught and threw candlelight like captured stars. The city's werewolf elite filled the space in their finest formal wear. The ancient bloodlines mixing with the nouveau powerful in a carefully choreographed dance of status and influence. And every single one of them was watching Bobby Richards return to the scene of his greatest humiliation. "Ignore them," Bobby muttered, though his wolf was howling inside his chest. He shouldn't have come. He should have stayed in Boston, should have kept Anna safely separate from this world, from his past, from the jagged edges of a heart that had never quite healed. Then he heard her name, spoken with the reverence usually reserved for royalty. Tina Jester. His head turned before he could stop it, before his rational mind could override the instinct that had never quite released its grip. And there she was. Tina stood near the center of the hall, and Bobby's breath stopped. 3 years should have dulled the impact. 3 years should have built up some kind of immunity, some defense against the way his entire nervous system lit up at the sight of her. The emerald gown she wore seemed to have been designed specifically to destroy him. Off-shoulder, flowing, the color bringing out the gold flecks in her brown eyes that he'd once spent hours mapping like constellations. Her chestnut hair cascaded over bare shoulders, and that silver circlet resting against her forehead marked her as exactly what she was: the Alpha King's chosen Omega, Lucas Peters' possession. "Bobby?" Anna's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Who is that?" He couldn't answer, couldn't force words past the boulder lodged in his throat. Because Tina had turned, her gaze sweeping across the crowd with the automatic smile of someone who'd spent 3 years learning to perform royalty. And then their eyes met. The impact was physical. Bobby actually staggered half a step backward, his wolf surging forward with a recognition so profound it bordered on pain. He watched Tina's carefully composed expression crack, watched her lips part in shock, watched her hand, the one wearing Lucas's ring, fly to her throat as if she'd forgotten how to breathe. 3 years. They'd managed 3 years without laying eyes on each other, without the torture of proximity, the reminder of everything they'd lost. And then Lucas noticed. The Alpha King stood beside Tina. Welcome back to the channel, my dear friends. Before we dive deeper into the story, kindly click subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments which country you are watching from. Your support helps me bring you more thrilling stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. His silver hair catching the light in a way that made him look like something carved from marble and moonlight. At 45, he radiated the kind of power that came from 5 centuries of breeding and the absolute certainty that he owned everything his gaze touched, including, especially, the Omega at his side. Bobby watched Lucas follow Tina's stare, watched the moment of recognition, watched something dark and calculating slide across those ancient features. And then Lucas smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Bobby?" Anna's voice had gone up an octave. "What's happening? Why is that man looking at you like—" Lucas was moving. The crowd parted before him like he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. And Bobby felt paralyzed, rooted to the marble floor as the Alpha King approached with Tina in tow. Her scent hit him first, lavender and honey and home, the Omega pheromones that had once wrapped around him like a promise. And Bobby's wolf whined with a longing so fierce it felt like dying. "Bobby Richards." Lucas's voice rolled across the space between them, pitched perfectly to carry without shouting, to command attention without demanding it. "It's been far too long. I was beginning to think you'd abandoned New York entirely." Protocol demanded a response. Pack law required submission to royalty. Bobby forced his spine to bend, forced his head to lower in the bow that acknowledged Lucas's superior status. Beside him, Anna dropped into an awkward curtsy, her hand slipping from his. "Your Majesty," Bobby managed. "I've been traveling." "So I've heard." Lucas's smile widened, showing too many teeth. His eyes, ice blue, predator sharp, flicked to Anna with dismissive interest. "And you've brought a guest. How delightful." This was the moment. Bobby should introduce Anna, should present his new mate to the Alpha King with pride and confidence, should show the entire pack that he'd moved on, that Tina Jester was nothing but ancient history, that Lucas Peters' victory 3 years ago meant nothing now. But Anna's hand was trembling where she'd clasped it in front of her, and Tina's scent was filling Bobby's lungs like poison, and Lucas was looking at him with the expression of a cat that had just cornered a particularly entertaining mouse. "I'm Anna Brown, Your Majesty," Anna said, her voice smaller than Bobby had ever heard it. "It's an honor to—" "Charming," Lucas cut her off, but his attention had already shifted. Back to Tina, who stood frozen at his side, her brown eyes still locked on Bobby with an intensity that made his ribs ache. "Tina, darling, you remember Bobby Richards, don't you?" It was cruelty, casual and deliberate. Bobby saw Tina flinch, saw her throat work as she swallowed hard. "Of course, Your Majesty," she whispered. "It's been a long time." 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days, Lucas said pleasantly. "Not that anyone's counting." The silence that followed was suffocating. Bobby could feel the attention of the entire hall focused on their little group, could hear the whispers starting up again, speculation and gossip spreading like wildfire. Everyone knew the story. Everyone remembered how Bobby Richards had courted Tina Jester, how they'd planned to mate bond, how Lucas Peter had stepped in at the 11th hour and claimed her with the kind of absolute authority that made resistance impossible. Old pack law. The alphaking's right of first refusal. A custom that hadn't been invoked in over a century, but technically still stood in the books. Lucas had destroyed Bobby's life because he could, because he wanted Tina, because 500 years of breeding had convinced him that anything he desired was his by right. And now Lucas was looking at Bobby with that same proprietary smile, as if 3 years had done nothing to diminish his pleasure in the conquest. "You look well, Bobby," Lucas continued. "Traveling agrees with you. Though I'm surprised you'd leave such a lovely mate alone for so long. The city can be dangerous for unprotected omegas." Anna made a small sound, hurt, or maybe just recognition that she'd walked into something far more complicated than a simple party. Bobby wanted to comfort her, wanted to turn and leave, wanted to do literally anything except stand here while Lucas Peter twisted the knife. But then Lucas did something that changed everything. He reached out, his fingers catching Tina's chin with a gentleness that somehow made the gesture more possessive than rough handling ever could. Bobby watched, paralyzed, as Lucas tilted Tina's face upward. Watched as those ice-blue eyes glittered with cruel amusement. Watched as Tina's pupils dilated, as her scent spiked with something that might have been fear or anticipation, or the complicated mix of both that came from being an omega bound to a king who demanded absolute submission. "Sometimes," Lucas said softly, his words pitched for their small group, but somehow carrying to the breathless crowd beyond, "a king forgets himself in the presence of beauty." And then his mouth descended on hers. The kiss wasn't gentle, wasn't the polite social acknowledgement between bonded mates. This was possession, dominance, a public claim that seared itself into Bobby's retinas like a brand he'd never unsee. Lucas's fingers tangled in Tina's hair, tilting her head back at an angle that exposed the vulnerable line of her throat. And Bobby could actually see the moment Tina's body went liquid in Lucas's arms, the omega submission response overriding everything else. The hall had gone absolutely silent. 300 witnesses frozen in collective shock, watching their alpha king devour his omega in front of his ex-lover, with the casual brutality of absolute power. Bobby couldn't breathe, couldn't think. His wolf was howling, clawing at the inside of his chest, trying to burst free and challenge the Alpha King for what? For an Omega who belonged to someone else? For a mate bond that had never been completed? For the ghost of a future that died 3 years ago? Beside him, Anna made a sound like she'd been punched. Bobby felt her hand slip away from his, felt her stumble backward into the crowd, but he couldn't turn to comfort her. Couldn't look away from the sight of Lucas Peter kissing Tina with the kind of thoroughness that left no doubt about who she belonged to. When Lucas finally released her, Tina's face was flushed, her lips swollen, her eyes glazed with the kind of submission that came from Omega biology overriding conscious thought. But Bobby saw something else there too, something that punched through the haze of dominance pheromones and public humiliation. He saw tears, just one, tracing down her cheek before she blinked it away. Just one betrayal of the agony beneath the performance. "Forgive me," Lucas said, his voice carrying across the silent hall with false contrition. "Sometimes a king forgets himself in the presence of beauty. Tina has that effect on me." His hand moved to her shoulder, fingers curling with unmistakable possession. "She always has." Bobby's hands clenched into fists. He could feel his wolf pressing against the surface, could feel the dangerous edge of challenge rising in his throat. One word, one movement. That's all it would take to trigger a dominance fight with an Alpha King who outweighed him by 50 pounds and 5 centuries of genetic superiority. It would be suicide. It would also feel really, really good. "Bobby," Anna's voice, somewhere behind him, thick with tears. Lucas's eyes met Bobby's over Tina's bowed head. The message there was clearer than any words. Welcome home. Let the games begin. And Bobby realized with sinking horror that this, all of this, had been planned. Lucas had known Bobby would return eventually, had known he'd bring someone new, had orchestrated this entire encounter to remind Bobby of exactly one thing. No matter how far he ran, no matter who he loved, no matter how many years passed, Tina would always belong to Lucas Peter. And Bobby would always be the man who'd lost her. The Alpha King smiled, all teeth and triumph. "Enjoy the party, Bobby," Lucas said pleasantly. "We have so much catching up to do." Then he turned, guiding Tina away with one possessive hand at the small of her back. But not before Bobby caught one last glimpse of her face, one last flash of those brown eyes that had once promised him forever. In them, he read a message that would haunt him through everything that came next. "Help me." Anna was gone before Bobby's brain caught up with his body. He spun around, scanning the crowd for her blonde hair, her blue dress, any sign of the Omega he'd brought here and then abandoned the moment his past walked into view. Guilt crashed through him in waves, mixing with the adrenaline still flooding his system from watching Lucas kiss Tina like he was marking territory in front of a rival pack. "Anna!" He pushed through clusters of wolves who suddenly found the marble floor fascinating, who turned away with the kind of deliberate avoidance that told him exactly what they thought of the scene they'd just witnessed. "Anna, wait!" He found her in the eastern corridor, past the main hall where the music had started up again, a waltz that felt obscene in its normalcy after what had just happened. She stood with her back against one of the gilded columns, mascara tracking down her cheeks, her whole body shaking like she was trying very hard not to completely fall apart. "Anna, I'm sorry, Don't." The word came out sharp enough to cut. Anna held up one trembling hand, and Bobby stopped mid-step. "Just don't. It's not what you think." "Really?" Her laugh was bitter, nothing like the sweet giggle he'd fallen for 6 months ago when she'd literally bumped into him at a Boston coffee shop, spilling her latte all over his shirt and then blushing so hard he'd thought she might pass out. "Because what I think is that I just watched you watch another woman get kissed by the most powerful werewolf on the East Coast, and you looked like someone had ripped your heart out through your chest." Bobby opened his mouth, closed it, because she wasn't wrong. "That's her, isn't it?" Anna continued, her voice getting stronger even as more tears spilled down her cheeks. "That's Tina, the one you never talk about, the reason you left New York, the reason you—" Her breath hitched. "God, I'm so stupid. You never got over her." "That's not fair." "Fair?" Anna's eyes flashed. "You brought me to meet your world, Bobby. You told me it was time, that I needed to understand pack culture, that we were building something real. And the entire time, you knew she'd be here. You knew you'd see her again. You knew—" Her voice cracked. "Did you bring me here to make her jealous? Was I just a prop in whatever twisted game you're playing with your ex and the Alpha King?" "No!" The word came out too loud, echoing off the marble. Bobby lowered his voice, took a step closer. "Anna, please. You have to understand what happened between Tina and me. It was complicated. Lucas took her from me. He used old pack law to claim her, and I never—" "You never what? Never stopped loving her?" Anna wiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand, smearing makeup. "Because that's what I saw in there, Bobby. I saw a man looking at a woman like she was his entire world. And I was just in the way." The truth of it hit Bobby like a physical blow. Because standing in that hallway, watching Anna fall apart, he couldn't honestly tell her she was wrong. He'd spent 6 months building something with her, 6 months trying to convince himself that what they had was real, was enough, was worth the careful distance he kept from anything that reminded him of New York and Tina and the future Lucas had stolen. But one look across a crowded hall, and all those carefully constructed walls had crumbled like sand. "I care about you," Bobby said, and he meant it. "Anna, you have to know that But you love her." It wasn't a question. Anna's shoulders sagged, and suddenly she looked much older than 23. "You love her, and she's bonded to someone else, and I'm just— What? Your consolation prize?" "You're not. I need to go." Anna straightened, pulling together the shreds of her dignity with visible effort. "I need to go home, to Boston, tonight." Panic flared in Bobby's chest. Anna, please, just let me explain. Explain what? Her eyes met his, and Bobby saw the exact moment she made her decision. Explain how you're still in love with a woman who belongs to the Alpha King? Explain how I'll never be enough because I'm not her? No, Bobby. I deserve better than being second choice. I deserve someone who looks at me the way you look at her. She was right. God help him, she was completely right. I'm sorry, Bobby whispered, and he was. Sorry for the pain in her eyes. Sorry for bringing her into this mess. Sorry for not being the man she deserved. Anna, I'm so sorry. Me too. She moved past him, heading toward the exit. But she paused at the edge of the corridor, glancing back one last time. For what it's worth, Bobby, whatever's happening here, whatever game Lucas is playing, be careful. Because from where I'm standing, you're not the only one trapped in the past. Then she was gone, her footsteps echoing on marble until the sound faded into the music and laughter spilling from the main hall. Bobby stood alone in the corridor, his wolf howling with guilt and grief and a rage that had nowhere to go. He should follow her, should make sure she got home safely, should do literally anything except stand here like an idiot while his life imploded for the second time in 3 years. That was brutal to watch. Bobby spun around, his wolf surging forward defensively before he recognized the voice. A woman stepped out of the shadows near one of the side alcoves, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a burgundy dress that marked her as high-ranking pack. Her hair was pulled back in intricate braids, and her amber eyes studied him with the kind of assessment that made Bobby's instincts prickle. "Do I know you?" he asked warily. "Not yet." She extended her hand. "Veronica Chen. I'm Lucas's senior advisor." Her lips quirked. "And before you run screaming, I'm not here on official business. Consider this a concerned citizen reaching out." Bobby didn't take her hand. "If you're Lucas's advisor, then you're the enemy." "Am I?" Veronica dropped her hand, unbothered by the rejection. "That's interesting, because from where I'm standing, we might want the same thing." "And what's that?" "To stop Lucas from destroying everyone in his path." Veronica glanced toward the main hall where the music had shifted to something slower, more seductive, including Tina. The name hit Bobby like a punch. If you're his advisor, then you've been helping him keep her trapped for 3 years. Trapped? Veronica's eyebrows rose. Is that what you think is happening? I know what Lucas is. I know how he operates. He saw something he wanted and he took it. Damn the consequences. You're not wrong, Veronica agreed. But you're not entirely right either. Tell me something, Bobby. In the 3 years since Lucas claimed Tina, have you ever wondered why he did it? Because he could. Because he's a possessive bastard who gets off on power games. Partially true. Veronica moved closer, lowering her voice. But Lucas Peter doesn't do anything without a reason. He's 500 years old, Bobby. He's had countless omegas, countless opportunities to invoke old pack law and claim whoever caught his fancy. So why Tina? Why your Tina, specifically? Bobby's hands clenched into fists. She's not mine anymore. Isn't she? Veronica's amber eyes glittered. Because that kiss in there, that wasn't about passion. That was about sending you a message. Lucas wants you to know that he owns her. Which begs the question, why does he care what you think 3 years after you left? Bobby's wolf growled low in his chest. What are you getting at? I'm getting at the fact that you're a piece on a chessboard you don't even know you're playing on. Veronica glanced toward the main hall again, tension visible in her shoulders. Lucas has been planning something for months. He's been more possessive of Tina than usual, more paranoid about her interactions with other pack members. And then 2 weeks ago, he got word that you were back in the city. Want to guess what happened next? I don't play guessing games. He moved up the timeline for tonight's gala, changed the guest list, made sure you'd be invited. Veronica's gaze returned to Bobby's face. He wanted you here, Bobby. He orchestrated this entire encounter. The question is why? Unease crawled down Bobby's spine. You're saying he knew I'd bring someone? That he planned to humiliate me in front of... I'm saying Lucas Peter plays a long game, and you just became relevant again. Veronica pulled something from her small clutch, a business card, simple white with a phone number embossed in gold. When you're ready to find out why, call me. Because trust me, whatever you think is happening here, it's worse. Bobby stared at the card like it might bite him. Why should I trust you? You work for him. I work for the pack, Veronica corrected. And right now, Lucas's obsession with Tina and with you is putting the entire East Coast hierarchy at risk. So yes, I work for him. But I also work for the hundreds of wolves whose lives depend on their alpha king not losing his mind over an omega he claimed 3 years ago. She pressed the card into Bobby's hand before he could refuse it. Call me when you're ready to hear the truth, Veronica said. Because that woman you love, she's in more danger than you realize. And whether you like it or not, you're the only one who can help her. Then she was gone, melting back into the shadows like she'd never been there at all. Bobby stood in the empty corridor, Veronica's card burning in his palm, Anna's tears still fresh in his memory, and Tina's silent plea echoing in his skull. Help me. But help her how? Challenge an alpha king who could kill him with one hand tied behind his back? Disrupt a bond that had been legally recognized by every pack court on the eastern seaboard? Start a war that would get him, and probably Tina, killed? His phone buzzed. A text from Anna. Made it to Grand Central. Don't follow me. Don't call. I need time. Guilt twisted in Bobby's gut. He typed out a response, deleted it, typed another one, deleted that too. What could he possibly say? Sorry I'm still in love with someone else? Sorry you got caught in the crossfire of my tragic past? He settled for, I'm sorry, you deserve so much better. She didn't respond. Bobby pocketed his phone and Veronica's card, then made himself walk back toward the main hall. He should leave, should get the hell out of this gilded nightmare and go back to Boston, back to his quiet life managing a bookstore and pretending he was over Tina Jester. But his feet carried him forward anyway, drawn by the same gravitational pull that had been dragging him toward her since the moment they met 7 years ago. The ballroom had filled up even more, the dancing now in full swing. Bobby found a spot near one of the columns where he could observe without being obvious about it. His eyes found Tina immediately. Wolf instinct, or maybe just the fact that she still pulled his gaze like a magnet pulls iron. She was dancing with Lucas, her emerald dress swirling as the Alpha King guided her through a flawless waltz. To anyone watching, they looked perfect together. Royalty in motion, the powerful Alpha and his beautiful Omega. Lucas held her with the possessive confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to whatever he desired. But Bobby had spent 2 years learning Tina's every expression, every micro gesture. He saw the tension in her shoulders, saw the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, saw the careful distance she maintained even while pressed against Lucas's chest, saw the exact moment her gaze found his across the crowded ballroom. Their eyes locked, and Bobby felt the impact like a physical blow. 3 years. 3 years of trying to forget, trying to move on, trying to convince himself that what they'd had wasn't worth destroying himself over. All of it evaporated in the space of a heartbeat. Tina's lips parted slightly, her eyes widening with something that looked like hope and terror mixed together. Lucas must have felt her body tense because his hand tightened on her waist, and his gaze followed hers to where Bobby stood frozen by the column. The Alpha King's smile was slow, predatory. Lucas leaned down, whispering something in Tina's ear. Bobby saw her face go pale, saw her shake her head slightly, saw Lucas's grip tighten until she winced. Then the Alpha King was steering her across the dance floor, directly toward Bobby's position. And Bobby's wolf was snarling because he knew this was going to end badly. They stopped 3 feet away. Lucas still had one possessive hand on Tina's waist, keeping her pressed against his side like a trophy. "Bobby," Lucas said pleasantly, "still here? I thought perhaps you'd left with your lovely companion. Such a shame she didn't stay for the dancing." "She had somewhere to be," Bobby managed, his eyes locked on Tina's face. She was looking anywhere but at him, her whole body rigid with tension. "Of course." Lucas's smile widened. "Well, since you're alone now, perhaps you'd care to join us for a drink? I find I'm in a celebratory mood." It was a command dressed as an invitation. Refusing would be a direct insult to the Alpha King. Bobby forced himself to nod. "Of course, Your Majesty." "Excellent." Lucas guided Tina toward one of the smaller sitting rooms off the main hall. Private spaces where pack elite could conduct business away from prying eyes. Bobby followed, his wolf on high alert, every instinct screaming that this was a trap. The sitting room was elegantly appointed. Leather chairs, a fireplace already crackling, and most importantly, soundproofing that meant whatever happened here would stay private. Lucas settled into one of the chairs, pulling Tina down to perch on the arm beside him. His hand rested on her thigh, possessive and deliberate. Bobby remained standing, every muscle coiled tight. "Drink?" Lucas gestured to the bar cart. "I'm fine." "Suit yourself." Lucas poured himself a scotch, neat, and took a slow sip while studying Bobby like he was a particularly interesting specimen. "You know, Bobby, I've been thinking about you quite a bit lately." "That's flattering," Bobby said flatly. "Is it?" Lucas's eyes glittered. Because I've been wondering something. 3 years ago, when I claimed Tina, you left without a fight. Didn't challenge me, didn't argue, just left. I've always found that curious. Bobby's jaw clenched. There was no point. Old pack law gave you the right. Fighting you would have been suicide. True, Lucas agreed. But since when do young wolves let logic stop them from defending what they love? I've seen pups barely out of adolescence challenge alphas twice their size over matters of the heart. Yet you, a grown man with beta bloodlines and considerable strength, you just walked away. Tina made a small sound, quickly stifled. Lucas's hand tightened on her thigh. "What's your point?" Bobby asked. "My point," Lucas said softly, "is that I think you're a coward. I think you ran because you knew you couldn't win, and rather than die with honor, you chose to live with shame." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And I think Tina deserves to know that the man she pined for, the man she cried over for 6 months until I finally broke her of the habit, I think she deserves to know that he valued his own survival over her freedom." The accusation hit Bobby like a slap. He felt his wolf surge forward, felt the challenge rising in his throat, felt 3 years of suppressed rage threatening to explode. But he also saw Tina's face, saw the tears gathering in her eyes, saw the way she was biting her lip hard enough to draw blood, saw the silent plea that begged him not to take the bait. "You're right," Bobby said quietly, and watched Lucas's eyebrows rise in surprise. "I was a coward. I ran because I couldn't bear to watch you have her. I ran because staying would have killed me, and I wasn't ready to die. You want me to admit it? Fine. I'm admitting it." Lucas studied him for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed. "Well, that was unexpected." He stood, bringing Tina with him, keeping her pressed against his side. "Most wolves lie, Bobby. They make excuses, they blame circumstances. But you're honest about your weakness. I almost respect that." "Almost?" "Almost." Lucas moved closer, bringing Tina with him, until the 3 of them formed a triangle barely 3 feet across. Bobby could smell her now, lavender and honey overlaid with Lucas's dominant scent, marking her as claimed, as owned, as off-limits. But here's what I'm really curious about, Bobby. You ran 3 years ago. You stayed away, built a new life, found a new Omega. So why come back now? Why risk reopening old wounds? Bobby's eyes flicked to Tina, then back to Lucas. "Business. I'm thinking of relocating my bookstore to Manhattan." "Liar." Lucas's smile was sharp, but we'll let it pass. Here's what's going to happen instead. You're going to stay in New York for the winter season. You're going to attend the pack functions. You're going to watch Tina and me together, over and over, until you finally accept that she belongs to me. "Lucas," Tina's voice, barely a whisper. "Hush, darling." Lucas didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on Bobby, ice blue and merciless. And if you can manage that, if you can prove you finally moved on, then maybe, just maybe, I'll consider letting you back into pack society without making your life a living hell. Do we have an understanding? It was psychological torture dressed up as mercy. Lucas was going to parade Tina in front of Bobby for months, rubbing his face in everything he'd lost, everything he could never have. Bobby should refuse, should leave New York tonight and never look back. But Veronica's words echoed in his mind. She's in more danger than you realize. And Tina's eyes were begging him, "Help me." "We have an understanding," Bobby heard himself say. "Your Majesty." Lucas's smile was triumphant. "Excellent. This is going to be so much fun." He pulled Tina back toward the main hall, and Bobby watched them go, his heart hammering against his ribs. He'd just agreed to months of torture. But he'd also just bought himself time to figure out what the hell was really going on. And maybe, just maybe, to save the woman he'd never stopped loving, even if it killed him. Bobby didn't go back to Boston. He should have packed his bags, driven the 3.5 hours north, and buried himself in the safety of his bookstore and the remnants of whatever life he'd built there. Instead, he found himself checking into the Roosevelt Hotel at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling of a room that cost more per night than he used to make in a week, wondering when exactly he'd lost his mind. His phone buzzed for the 14th time. Anna, probably. Or maybe his business partner, wondering why he hadn't shown up for inventory. Bobby ignored it, the same way he'd ignored the previous 13 calls. Because Tina's face kept superimposing itself over everything else. The way she'd looked at him across the ballroom. The tears she'd blinked away. The silent scream in her eyes that said everything her mouth couldn't. "Help me." Bobby rolled out of bed and pulled Veronica Chen's business card from his wallet. 3 in the morning was probably too early to call a stranger about conspiracy theories involving the Alpha King. Then again, Veronica had specifically sought him out, had warned him that Tina was in danger, had implied that Lucas was playing some kind of long game that Bobby didn't understand. He dialed before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and alert, like she'd been expecting the call. "Bobby Richards, I wondered how long it would take you to crack." "You said Tina was in danger," Bobby said without preamble. "Explain." "Not over the phone." Background noise suggested Veronica was outside somewhere. Traffic sounds, the distant wail of sirens. "Meet me at Prospect Park, the boathouse. 30 minutes. "It's 3 in the morning. Then you better hurry. And Bobby, come alone. If Lucas finds out I'm talking to you, we're both dead." The line went dead. Bobby stared at his phone for exactly 5 seconds, then grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Every rational part of his brain screamed that this was a trap, that trusting Lucas's senior advisor was monumentally stupid, that nothing good happened in empty parks at 3 in the morning. But the wolf in him, the part that had never stopped protecting Tina even from 3 states away, was already halfway out the door. The drive to Brooklyn took 20 minutes through empty streets slick with December rain. Prospect Park loomed dark and forbidding, the kind of place where smart people didn't wander alone after dark. Bobby parked near the boathouse and made his way down the path, his wolf senses on high alert, scanning for threats in the shadows. Veronica waited by the water's edge, her burgundy dress replaced by dark jeans and a leather jacket. She looked younger without the formal wear, less polished advisor, and more dangerous predator. Her amber eyes tracked Bobby's approach with the kind of wariness that suggested she knew exactly how stupid this meeting was. "You came," she said. "You said Tina was in danger." Bobby stopped a careful distance away, keeping space between them in case this went sideways. "Start talking." Veronica studied him for a moment, then reached into her jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. 3 months ago, Lucas received a letter, unmarked, hand-delivered to his private office. Inside was a single photograph. She handed Bobby the envelope. He opened it with hands that weren't quite steady. The photograph showed Tina, clearly taken without her knowledge. She was sitting in what looked like a coffee shop, sunlight streaming through the window, a book open in front of her. She looked peaceful, happy even. And sitting across from her, partially visible in the frame, was a man with dark hair and a familiar leather jacket. Bobby's leather jacket. "This was taken 2 years ago," Veronica said quietly. "In Boston, at a cafe 3 blocks from your bookstore." Bobby's blood ran cold. "I've never met Tina in Boston. I haven't seen her in 3 years, not until tonight." "I know." Veronica's expression was grim. "That's why the photograph is so concerning. Because either someone staged it very convincingly, or there's a version of events happening that none of us understand." Bobby looked closer at the image. The man's face was turned away, but the jacket was definitely his, right down to the worn patch on the left elbow. "This is impossible. I was never—" He stopped, memory stirring. "Wait. 2 years ago, I lost that jacket. Thought I'd left it at a bar, but it showed up in my car 3 days later. I figured I'd just been drunk and forgotten." "Or someone borrowed it," Veronica said. "Someone who wanted Lucas to think you and Tina were still meeting in secret." The implications crashed through Bobby like a freight train. "Someone's setting us up. But why?" "That's the question, isn't it?" Veronica pulled out her phone, swiping through images. After Lucas received that photograph, he became obsessed. Started having Tina followed everywhere. Restricted her movements, controlled who she could speak to, monitored her phone calls. "The woman you saw tonight? That's not the same Omega Lucas claimed 3 years ago. That's someone living in a gilded cage, and the bars get tighter every day." She showed Bobby another photo. This one clearly surveillance footage from what looked like Lucas's penthouse. Tina stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows, her arms wrapped around herself, her whole body language screaming isolation and despair. Bobby's wolf snarled. "Why are you showing me this? If Lucas finds out—" "Lucas is going to destroy her," Veronica interrupted. "And maybe you, and maybe the entire pack hierarchy in the process. Because whoever sent that photograph isn't finished. 3 weeks ago, Lucas received another one." She swiped to a new image. This time, it showed Tina in what was clearly Central Park, bundled in a winter coat and standing close, too close, to someone whose face was conveniently obscured by shadows. The body language suggested intimacy, a secret meeting, something forbidden. "I've never met her," Bobby said desperately. "Veronica, I swear, I haven't been anywhere near Tina since I left New York." I believe you, Veronica said. But Lucas doesn't. And here's where it gets really interesting. The man in that second photograph, his height, his build, even the way he stands, it's not you, Bobby. It's close, but it's not you. Which means someone is going to a lot of effort to make Lucas think his Omega is cheating on him with her ex-lover. Bobby's mind raced. Who would do that? What's the end game? War. Veronica's voice was flat. There are packs that would love nothing more than to see Lucas destabilized, to watch him make a public mistake that would undermine his authority. If he kills you in a fit of jealous rage, if he harms his own Omega because he thinks she's betrayed him, either scenario would give the council grounds to challenge his position. The council wouldn't dare. The council is tired of Lucas's absolute rule. Veronica cut him off. He's made enemies, Bobby. 500 years of doing exactly what he wants has left a lot of bodies in his wake, metaphorically and literally. There are wolves who've been waiting decades for him to slip up, to give them an excuse to move against him. Bobby stared at the photograph, at the stranger wearing his face like a mask. So what? Someone frames Tina and me for an affair, Lucas loses his mind, and the council steps in to clean up the mess? That's insane. That's pack politics. Veronica took her phone back. Her expression troubled. And it gets worse. Last week, Lucas told me he's planning to invoke blood right. The words hit Bobby like a physical blow. Blood right, an ancient pack law that hadn't been used in over 2 centuries. The right of an alpha to permanently bind an Omega to him, not through the temporary mate bond that could theoretically be broken, but through a blood ritual that was absolute and irreversible, and usually fatal to the Omega if the alpha died. He can't, Bobby breathed. That's barbaric. The council banned blood right in 1823. The council banned its enforcement, Veronica corrected. But it's still technically legal under old pack law, the same law Lucas used to claim Tina in the first place. And if he does it, if he binds her through blood right, she'll be tied to him forever. Even if you somehow found a way to challenge him, even if you won, Tina would die the moment Lucas's heart stopped beating. Bobby's legs went weak. He sat down hard on the nearest bench, his mind reeling. When? The spring equinox, 3 months from now. Veronica sat beside him, her voice gentler than before. Lucas announced it to the senior advisors yesterday. He's framing it as a romantic gesture, a declaration of his devotion to Tina. But we both know what it really is. A cage she can never escape, Bobby whispered. Exactly. Veronica pulled out a cigarette, lit it with hands that shook slightly. So here's the situation, Bobby. Someone is deliberately trying to make Lucas believe his Omega is unfaithful. Lucas is responding by planning to lock her into a bond that will kill her if anything happens to him. And you're the unwitting patsy in the middle of it all. The ex-lover who makes the perfect scapegoat. Bobby's hands clenched into fists. What do you want from me? I want you to help me figure out who's really behind this before Lucas does something we can't undo. Veronica blew out a stream of smoke. I've been investigating quietly, but I'm limited. Lucas trusts me, but he doesn't tell me everything. You, on the other hand, you're an outsider. You can move in circles I can't, ask questions that would get me killed. You want me to investigate the alphaking? Bobby said flatly, while pretending to go along with his sadistic plan to torture me for the winter season. I want you to save Tina's life, Veronica corrected. Everything else is just details. Bobby stood, pacing to the water's edge. The lake rippled with rain, dark and cold and reflecting nothing but shadows. 3 years ago, he'd run because staying would have killed him. Now, staying might kill Tina, and running might doom her to something worse than death. "What makes you think I can figure this out?" he asked. "I'm not an investigator. I run a bookstore, for God's sake." "You love her," Veronica said simply. "That makes you more motivated than anyone else in this city. And Bobby, whoever's framing you two is going to make another move. They have to, if they want to push Lucas over the edge before the spring equinox. When they do, you need to be ready." Bobby thought about the way Lucas had kissed Tina in front of 300 witnesses. Thought about the tears in her eyes, the silent plea for help, the prison of power and possession that held her captive. Thought about what would happen if he walked away now and left her to face Bloodright alone. "What do you need me to do?" he heard himself ask. Veronica's smile was sharp. "First, you're going to accept Lucas's invitation to stay in New York. Play the heartbroken ex, show up to pack functions, let him parade Tina in front of you. Make him think you're broken." "I am broken," Bobby said quietly. "Then it should be easy." Veronica stubbed out her cigarette. "Second, you're going to start asking questions. Quietly. Who benefits from Lucas being destabilized? Who has the resources to orchestrate a long-term frame job? Who hates him enough to risk war? That could be dozens of wolves. Then you better start eliminating suspects." Veronica stood, brushing off her jeans. "Third, and this is crucial, you stay away from Tina. No matter what you feel, no matter how much you want to talk to her, you don't. Because if Lucas catches even a hint that you two are communicating, he'll accelerate the Bloodright ritual, and she'll be lost forever." Bobby's wolf howled in protest. "You're asking me to watch him hurt her and do nothing?" "I'm asking you to be smart instead of heroic," Veronica said. "Dead heroes don't save anyone, Bobby. And right now, Tina needs you alive more than she needs you brave." She handed him another card, this one with an address. "That's a safe house in Queens. Use it if you need to meet without being observed. The wards are strong enough to block most tracking spells, and Lucas's surveillance doesn't extend that far." Bobby pocketed the card. "Why are you doing this? You're his senior advisor. Helping me goes against everything." "I've served the pack for 23 years, Veronica interrupted. "I've watched Lucas rule with absolute power, watched him bend laws to suit his whims, watched him destroy anyone who got in his way. And I stayed loyal because, for the most part, he was a good king. Fair, strong, protective of his wolves." She met Bobby's eyes. "But this thing with Tina? This isn't the behavior of a strong king. This is obsession, possession, the actions of a man who's losing control. And if Lucas falls, he'll take the entire Eastern Pack hierarchy down with him. So yes, I'm betraying him. Because sometimes loyalty means saving someone from themselves." Bobby understood that better than he wanted to admit. How do I contact you? You don't. I'll contact you. Veronica started walking back toward the parking lot. Oh, and Bobby? Lucas is going to test you. He's going to push, provoke, try to make you challenge him. Don't take the bait. The moment you show aggression toward the Alpha King, you're dead. And Tina loses her only ally. She paused at the edge of the path. One more thing. There's a gathering tomorrow night at the Carlisle Hotel. Private, invitation only. Very exclusive. Lucas will be there with Tina. Make sure you show up. Why? Veronica's smile was grim. Because whoever's framing you needs opportunities to manufacture evidence. Large gatherings mean witnesses, cameras, chances for staged photographs. If I'm right, tomorrow night is when they'll make their next move. Then she was gone, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness like a ghost. Bobby stood alone by the lake, watching the sky lighten from black to gray to the pale blue of winter morning. Somewhere in the city, Tina was waking up in Lucas's penthouse, putting on the mask of the perfect Omega, preparing for another day in her gilded cage. And Bobby had just agreed to dance along the edge of a knife for the next 3 months, playing a game where one wrong move meant death for both of them. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. The Carlisle, 8 p.m., formal attire. Don't be late. V. Bobby stared at the message until his vision blurred. He should run, should get in his car and drive until New York was nothing but a bad memory in his rearview mirror. But Tina's eyes haunted him, her silent plea, her trapped desperation. Help me. I'm trying, Bobby whispered to the empty park. God help me. I'm trying. He just hoped it would be enough. The Carlisle Hotel dripped old money elegance, all Art Deco glamour and discreet luxury, the kind of place where wealth whispered instead of shouted. Bobby arrived at 8 sharp, wearing the only suit he owned that didn't make him look like he was attending a funeral. The doorman barely glanced at his invitation before ushering him into a private elevator that required a keycard to operate. The gathering occupied the entire top floor, a sprawling penthouse suite that had been converted into an intimate party space. Maybe 50 wolves total, all high-ranking pack members, all wearing the kind of casual confidence that came from never questioning your place in the hierarchy. Bobby felt like an imposter the moment he stepped through the door. Bobby Richards! A hearty voice boomed from across the room. Gerald Thornton, one of Lucas's inner circle, bore down on Bobby with the aggressive friendliness of someone who enjoyed watching others squirm. Heard you were back in town. Brave of you to show your face after, well, his smile was all teeth. After everything. Gerald. Bobby accepted the handshake, matching the other man's grip with just enough pressure to avoid being dominated. Good to see you. Is it, though? Gerald's eyes glittered with malice. Must be hard, being back where it all went wrong, where you lost. He gestured vaguely. Everything. Before Bobby could respond, the room's energy shifted. Conversations stuttered and died. Every head turned toward the entrance. Lucas had arrived. The Alpha King wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Bobby's car. His silver hair swept back, to showcase the kind of aristocratic features that made him look like he'd walked out of a Renaissance painting. Power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Not aggressive, just omnipresent. The absolute certainty of dominance. And beside him, breathtaking in midnight blue silk, was Tina. Bobby's wolf surged forward, demanding recognition, demanding acknowledgement, demanding everything he couldn't have. He forced himself to look away, to focus on the drink Gerald was pressing into his hand, to pretend that seeing her didn't feel like dying all over again. "Ah, there's our returned prodigal," Lucas's voice cut through the murmur of resumed conversation. He was looking directly at Bobby, his ice-blue eyes glittering with predatory amusement. "Bobby, do join us. I insist." It wasn't a request. Bobby made his way through the crowd, hyper-aware of the stares following him, the whispers starting up like wildfire. Tina stood rigid at Lucas's side, her eyes fixed on some point past Bobby's shoulder, her whole body screaming tension. "Your Majesty." Bobby managed a bow. His eyes flicked to Tina for just a second, long enough to see the dark circles under her eyes, the too careful makeup, the way her hands trembled slightly where they clutched her evening bag. "I'm so pleased you could make it," Lucas said warmly, one hand settling possessively on Tina's lower back. "Tina was just saying how she hoped to see you again. Weren't you, darling?" Tina's throat worked. "Yes, Your Majesty." Her voice was hollow, carefully modulated to show no emotion at all. It killed Bobby to hear it. "Wonderful." Lucas's smile widened. "In fact, I was thinking, Bobby, you and Tina were quite close once, weren't you? Perhaps you'd like to catch up? I'm sure my Omega would appreciate reconnecting with an old friend." Every wolf in earshot went silent. This was a test, a trap. Lucas was dangling Tina in front of Bobby like bait, waiting to see if he'd take it. Veronica's warning echoed in Bobby's mind. Stay away from Tina, no matter what. But refusing would be an insult, and insulting the Alpha King in front of his inner circle would be suicide. Bobby met Lucas's gaze, saw the challenge there, the cruel amusement of a cat playing with a mouse. "I wouldn't want to presume, Your Majesty," Bobby said carefully. "I'm sure Tina has more important things to do than reminisce with me." "Nonsense!" Lucas's hand tightened on Tina's back, making her flinch. "I insist. Tina, why don't you show Bobby the terrace? The view is spectacular this time of evening." It was an order. They both knew it. Tina's eyes finally met Bobby's, and in them he saw pure terror. Not of him, of what Lucas was orchestrating, of the trap they were both walking into. "Of course," she whispered. "It would be nice to catch up." Lucas released her with obvious reluctance, his fingers trailing possessively across her back before letting go. "Don't be too long, darling. I'll miss you." The threat in those words was unmistakable. Bobby followed Tina through the French doors onto the terrace, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst through his chest. The moment they were outside, away from the immediate press of the crowd, Tina spoke without looking at him. "He's watching," she said quietly. "Through the glass. Don't come closer." Bobby stopped, maintaining a careful distance, pretending to admire the Manhattan skyline spread out below them like a carpet of stars. "Tina, Don't. Her voice cracked. Please, don't say my name like that. Like you still... She stopped, visibly pulling herself together. How have you been, Bobby? Boston treating you well? The forced casualness of it broke his heart. Tina, what's happening? Why is Lucas doing this? I can't tell you. Her hands gripped the railing so hard her knuckles went white. If I tell you, he'll know. He always knows. He has people watching me, listening to everything I say, monitoring every... She stopped again, drawing a shaky breath. Just play along. Pretend we're having a pleasant conversation about old times. Then go back inside and forget you ever saw me. I can't do that. You have to. Now she did look at him, and Bobby saw the desperation in her eyes. Bobby, if you care about me at all, you'll walk away. Lucas he's not stable. Not anymore. And I don't know what he'll do if he thinks... If he thinks what? Bobby demanded. Tina, talk to me. He thinks we're still in love, she whispered. He thinks I'm waiting for you to come back and save me. And he's determined to prove that I belong to him, no matter what it costs. Bobby's blood ran cold. The photographs. Tina, someone's been sending Lucas fake photographs of us together. Her eyes went wide. What? Someone's framing us, making it look like we've been meeting in secret. Veronica Chen showed me. He stopped as Tina went pale. Veronica told you? Her voice was barely audible. Bobby, if Lucas finds out she's helping you, he won't. Bobby took a half step closer before remembering Lucas was watching. Tina, listen to me. We have 3 months before the spring equinox, before Lucas invokes blood right. You know about that? She looked like she might be sick. How? It doesn't matter. What matters is we stop it. We figure out who's framing us. We expose them to the council, and we... There is no we, Tina interrupted. Bobby, you need to understand something. I'm not yours to save. I haven't been yours for 3 years. Whatever Lucas is planning, whatever game he's playing, it's between him and me. You need to go back to Boston, back to your life, and forget... I can't. The words came out raw, desperate. Tina, I've tried. God knows I've tried. But I can't forget you. I can't stop loving you. And I sure as hell can't stand by and watch Lucas trap you in a bond that will kill you if anything happens to him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Then you're going to get yourself killed, and I can't, Bobby. I can't watch you die because of me. I won't. Through the glass, Bobby saw Lucas moving toward the terrace doors. Time was up. 3 months, Bobby said urgently. Give me 3 months to figure this out, to find whoever's framing us, to stop the blood right ritual. Can you hold on that long? Tina wiped at her cheeks, composing herself with visible effort. I don't have a choice. You always have a choice, do I? Her laugh was bitter. Because from where I'm standing, my choices are submit to Lucas and live in a cage forever, or resist and watch him kill everyone I've ever cared about. Which one sounds like freedom to you? Lucas pushed through the terrace doors before Bobby could answer. His expression was pleasantly neutral, but his eyes were chips of ice. Ah, there you are. The Alpha King moved to Tina's side, wrapping one possessive arm around her waist. "I hope Bobby hasn't been boring you with tales of his bookstore, darling. I'm sure nothing happening in Boston could compare to the excitement of our life here." The emphasis on "our" was unmistakable. "Not at all, Your Majesty," Tina said quietly. "It was nice to catch up." "Wonderful." Lucas pulled her closer, his hand sliding to her hip in a gesture that was pure possession. "Bobby, I trust you found the conversation enlightening." Bobby met the Alpha King's gaze and saw the warning there, clear as day. "She's mine. She'll always be mine. And if you try to change that, I'll destroy you." "Very enlightening, Your Majesty," Bobby forced himself to say. "Thank you for the opportunity." "Of course." Lucas's smile was sharp. "After all, what are old friends for?" He guided Tina back inside, and Bobby watched them go, his wolf howling with impotent rage. He'd just had 5 minutes with the woman he loved, and it had only confirmed what he already knew. Tina was trapped. Lucas was unstable, and someone was orchestrating all of it, pushing toward an endgame that would destroy them all. Bobby pulled out his phone, pretending to check messages while actually photographing the crowd inside. Somewhere in that room was the person, or people, framing him and Tina. Somewhere in that glittering assembly of pack elite was a wolf playing a dangerous game with all their lives. He just had to figure out who, before time ran out. The photograph arrived at Bobby's hotel room at 3 in the morning. He'd been asleep, restless, nightmare-plagued sleep, where Tina's voice kept calling for help while he ran through endless corridors that led nowhere. The sharp knock on his door jolted him awake, his wolf surging to alertness before his conscious mind caught up. No one should know he was staying here. He'd paid cash, used a fake name, taken every precaution to stay off Lucas's radar. Bobby approached the door cautiously, every sense on high alert. But when he looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. Just a manila envelope lying on the carpet, his fake name scrawled across the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. He waited 5 full minutes, listening for footsteps, breathing, any sign of who'd delivered it. Nothing. Just the hum of the hotel's heating system and the distant wail of sirens from the street below. Finally, Bobby cracked the door and snatched the envelope, slamming the door shut and throwing the deadbolt before his wolf's paranoia could convince him this was the opening move in an ambush. Inside was a single photograph, high quality, professionally taken. It showed Bobby and Tina on the Carlisle terrace from earlier that night. The angle was perfect, the lighting dramatic. Bobby leaning toward Tina, her hand raised as if reaching for him, their faces illuminated by the city lights below. To anyone who didn't know the context, it looked intimate, romantic, like 2 lovers stealing a forbidden moment. But that wasn't what made Bobby's blood run cold. What terrified him was the second photograph, stapled to the first. This one showed Lucas, standing inside the Carlisle penthouse, staring out at the terrace with an expression of such raw fury that it looked like something carved from nightmares. His hand was clenched around a crystal glass hard enough that cracks had started to spiderweb through it. And in the reflection of the glass, barely visible, was another figure. Someone standing behind Lucas, watching him watch Bobby and Tina. Someone whose face was deliberately blurred, like they'd known exactly where the camera would be and how to avoid being identified. A note was paperclipped to the photographs, typed in a generic font that could have come from any computer. "He's going to kill you both, unless you act first. The spring equinox is too late. You have 3 weeks. The evidence you need is in his vault. Combination 17 38 29. You're welcome." Bobby read the note 3 times, his hands shaking. This was it. The next move Veronica had warned him about. Someone was actively trying to push him into confronting Lucas, into doing something that would give the Alpha King justification to destroy him. But the vault combination, if it was real, that was too specific to be a random guess. That was inside information, something only someone very close to Lucas would know. Bobby's phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. "Whatever you just received, don't trust it. We need to talk. Safe house. Now." He was dressed and out the door in under 3 minutes. The safe house in Queens was exactly what it sounded like. A nondescript brownstone in a working-class neighborhood where wolves didn't usually congregate. Bobby parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, his senses scanning for surveillance, for watchers, for any sign this was a trap. Veronica opened the door before he could knock, pulling him inside and slamming the deadbolt home. She looked rattled. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes were wild, and there was a fresh bruise blooming along her jawline. "What happened to you?" Bobby demanded. "Lucas knows." Veronica moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the empty street. "Not about you and me, not yet. But he knows someone's been accessing his private files. He had his security team sweep the entire penthouse tonight. Found evidence of surveillance equipment that even I didn't know about." Bobby's stomach dropped. "Surveillance equipment? You mean—" "I mean, someone's been watching Lucas watch Tina for months, maybe longer." Veronica turned from the window, her expression grim. "Bobby, this is bigger than we thought. Someone's not just framing you two. They're documenting everything, building a case, collecting evidence, preparing for something." Bobby pulled out the photographs and the note. "I got these tonight. Someone delivered them to my hotel room. How the hell did they know where I was staying?" Veronica studied the images, her face going pale. "This was taken tonight, at the Carlyle." She looked up at Bobby. "Who else knew you'd be there besides me and Lucas?" "No one. I didn't tell anyone." Bobby stopped. "Wait. When Lucas invited me to the terrace, there must have been 50 wolves in that room. Any one of them could have known where the cameras were, could have positioned themselves to get this shot. Or they had access to the building's security system." Veronica pointed at the angle of the first photo. "This wasn't taken by another guest. This was taken from one of the Carlyle's own surveillance cameras, which means either someone hacked their system or they had help from inside," Bobby finished. "Someone on Lucas's security team?" "Maybe. Or someone high enough in pack hierarchy that they have access to resources most wolves don't." Veronica read the note, her frown deepening. "This vault combination. Bobby, if this is real, if you actually broke into Lucas's private vault—" "It would be grounds for immediate execution," Bobby said flatly. "I know, which is exactly why I'm not doing it. This is bait, Veronica. Someone wants me dead, and they're trying to trick me into giving Lucas a reason to kill me." Agreed, but Veronica hesitated. What if the information in that vault is what we need? What if whoever's framing you actually put something there, evidence that could expose them? Bobby stared at her. "You can't be serious. You want me to break into the Alpha King's private vault based on an anonymous tip from someone who's actively trying to get me killed?" "I want you to consider the possibility that our enemy is also Lucas's enemy," Veronica countered. "Think about it, Bobby. Whoever's doing this has gone to enormous effort to destabilize Lucas, to make him paranoid and violent and obsessed. They've framed you. They've manipulated Tina. They've been documenting everything like they're building a legal case. Why?" "You said it yourself. They want Lucas removed. They want the council to step in." "Right, which means they need evidence of Lucas breaking pack law. Real evidence, not just manufactured photographs and hearsay." Veronica's eyes glittered. "What if that vault contains their insurance policy? What if they planted something there, something that proves Lucas is unfit to rule, and they're trying to get you to find it for them?" Bobby's head was spinning. "But why would they want me to find it? If they have evidence against Lucas, why not just present it to the council themselves?" "Because they need a witness," Veronica said quietly. "Someone other than them who can testify to what's in that vault. Someone whose testimony the council would have to take seriously." She paused. "Someone like the ex-lover of Lucas's Omega, who has every reason to want to see the Alpha King brought down." The pieces clicked together in Bobby's mind. They're using me as their fall guy. If I find whatever's in that vault and report it to the council, I'm the one who takes the risk. I'm the one who faces Lucas's wrath if it goes wrong. And if it goes right, you're the hero who exposed corruption at the highest level, Veronica finished. And whoever's really orchestrating this gets to stay in the shadows, clean hands and clear conscience. Bobby paced the small living room, his wolf snarling with frustration. "This is insane. We don't even know if that vault combination is real. For all we know, it's completely wrong, and I'd trigger an alarm that would bring Lucas's entire security team down on my head." "There's one way to find out." Veronica pulled out her laptop, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "I have access to some of Lucas's security protocols. Not all of them, but enough to know the general layout of his penthouse. If that combination matches the format he uses for his other secure locations—" She pulled up a series of files, scanning through code that looked like gibberish to Bobby. Then she stopped, her face going white. "What?" Bobby demanded. "What is it?" "That combination." Veronica's voice was barely a whisper. 173829. "Do you know what those numbers are?" "No idea." "They're dates." Veronica looked up at him. "January 17th, 2038, and February 9th. Specific dates that mean something to Lucas. I've seen them before in his personal files, marked as critical timestamps." Bobby's wolf stirred uneasily. "Timestamps for what?" "I don't know. Lucas keeps certain information compartmentalized. Even I don't have access to everything. But if whoever sent you this knows those specific dates, knows they're important enough to be used as a vault combination—" She stopped. "Bobby, this has to be someone inside Lucas's inner circle. Someone who's been close to him for years." The implications were staggering. Not just a random enemy trying to destabilize Lucas, but someone he trusted. Someone with deep access to his most private information. Someone who'd been planning this for a very long time. Bobby's phone buzzed. Another text, this one from an unknown number. Tick-tock, Bobby. 3 weeks until blood rite. How much time do you think Tina has left? The vault holds the key. Unless you're too much of a coward to use it. They're watching us, Bobby said quietly. Right now. They know I came here, know I'm talking to you. They're trying to push me into action. Veronica stood, moving to the window again. We need to move locations. If they know about this safe house. The window exploded inward in a shower of glass. Bobby's wolf surged forward, throwing him to the ground as something whistled through the space where his head had been a second before. A tranquilizer dart embedded itself in the far wall, the kind loaded with enough sedative to drop a full-grown werewolf in under 10 seconds. "Down!" Veronica shouted, rolling behind the couch as another dart shattered the lamp beside her. "They're on the roof across the street!" Bobby's mind raced. This wasn't Lucas's team. They would have just kicked down the door and arrested him. This was someone else. Someone who wanted him unconscious, not dead. Someone who wanted to frame this as a kidnapping. "Back door!" Bobby grabbed Veronica's arm, hauling her toward the kitchen. Another dart punched through the wall inches from his shoulder. "We need to move now!" They burst through the back door into a narrow alley, and Bobby's wolf immediately sensed the trap. 3 figures waited in the shadows ahead, all masked, all carrying tranquilizer rifles. More footsteps pounded from the street behind them. They were surrounded. "Veronica Chen and Bobby Richards," a distorted voice called from the darkness. Electronic modulation made it impossible to identify. "You're both coming with us. This can be easy, or it can be painful. Your choice." Bobby's wolf snarled, ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. But Veronica grabbed his arm, her grip iron tight. "Don't," she hissed. "If you shift, if you fight, they'll have justification to use lethal force. And that's what they want. They want you dead and Lucas blamed for it." "So what do we do?" Bobby demanded, watching the masked figures close in from both sides. Veronica's smile was sharp and feral. "We improvise." She pulled something from her jacket, a small cylinder that looked like a pen, and threw it at the ground between them and the approaching wolves. It exploded in a flash of blinding light and acrid smoke, some kind of military-grade flashbang that sent the attackers stumbling backward, cursing and temporarily blind. "Run!" Veronica grabbed Bobby's hand and hauled him toward a gap in the fence he hadn't even noticed. They crashed through into someone's backyard, vaulted over a chain-link barrier, and came out onto a parallel street where a nondescript sedan was already waiting, engine running. The driver's window rolled down. A young woman with pink hair and multiple facial piercings grinned at them. "You two look like you need a ride." "Jessie, you're a lifesaver," Veronica gasped, yanking open the back door. "Drive. Now. Don't care where, just away from here." Bobby piled into the back seat beside Veronica as Jessie hit the gas, the sedan peeling away from the curb with a screech of tires. Behind them, Bobby could see the masked figures emerging from the alley, but they were already 2 blocks away and gaining distance. "Anyone want to explain what the hell that was?" Jessie asked cheerfully, weaving through traffic like she'd been born behind a wheel. "Because from where I'm sitting, you just got attacked by professionals with very expensive equipment, which suggests someone really wants you dead or disappeared." "Working theory," Veronica said, still breathing hard. "Someone's trying to eliminate both Bobby and me before we can expose their frame job. If we disappeared tonight, Lucas would assume we'd run off together, which would confirm his worst suspicions about me being a traitor and Bobby being a threat." Bobby's mind was racing. "But they didn't kill us. Those were tranquilizer darts, not bullets. They wanted us alive." "For interrogation," Veronica said grimly. "They want to know what we've figured out, who else knows, how much evidence we've collected. Then they'd kill us and dump the bodies somewhere Lucas's people would find them. Make it look like we'd been working together to undermine him all along. Jesse whistled low. Damn, you two have really pissed off some powerful people. Jesse's an independent contractor, Veronica explained to Bobby. She does security work for wolves who don't want to use official pack resources. No loyalty to Lucas, no stake in pack politics. Which makes her one of the only people in New York I can trust right now. Aw, you sweet talker, Jesse said. So where are we going? Because I'm guessing your safe house is pretty compromised. Veronica pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I have another location, Midtown. Belonged to a friend who moved to California last year. No one knows about it except me. And whoever just tried to kidnap us, Bobby pointed out. Veronica, they knew we'd be at that safe house. They were waiting for us. Which means either they're tracking your phone or there's a mole in my network, Veronica finished quietly. She pulled the battery from her phone with sharp, angry movements. Bobby, your phone. Give it here. He handed it over, and she removed the battery from his, too. Jesse, head for the Midtown address, but take a circuitous route. Double back, use side streets. If anyone's following, I want to know about it. For the next 20 minutes, they drove in tense silence while Jesse performed evasive maneuvers that would have made a Hollywood stunt driver jealous. Bobby kept checking the rear window, but if anyone was following, they were too good to be spotted. Finally, Jesse pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a nondescript apartment building. We're clear. No tails, no surveillance I could spot. You two want to tell me what the hell is really going on? Veronica and Bobby exchanged glances. Then Veronica sighed. How much do you know about blood rite rituals? Jesse's playful expression vanished. Enough to know they're barbaric and illegal in every civilized pack in North America. Why? Because the Alpha King is planning to bind his Omega through blood rite in 3 weeks, Veronica said. And someone is very invested in making sure that happens, or in making sure Bobby tries to stop it and dies in the process. Jesse looked at Bobby with new respect. You're the ex, the one Lucas stole her from 3 years ago. That's me, Bobby said tiredly. And you came back to New York because I'm an idiot, Bobby said. Because I thought I could move on, thought I could bring someone new into my life and pretend the past didn't matter. Because I saw her again and realized I've been lying to myself for 3 years about being over her. Jesse studied him for a long moment. Then she grinned. Well, at least you're honest about being an idiot. I can respect that. She killed the engine. Veronica, I'm guessing you need my help with more than just a getaway driver. I need you to find out who just tried to grab us, Veronica said. Professional kidnappers with that level of coordination and equipment don't come cheap. Someone hired them, which means there's a money trail. Can you track it? Maybe. Jesse's eyes glittered with interest. But it'll cost you. My services don't come free, even for friends. Name your price, Veronica said. Whatever it takes, I'll pay it. Information. Jesse leaned back in her seat. I want to know what's really in that vault, the one Bobby's supposed to break into. Because I've been hearing rumors for months about Lucas hoarding something big enough that other packs are getting nervous. If you two are going up against the Alpha King, I want to know what you're really dealing with. Bobby and Veronica exchanged another glance. Then Bobby pulled out the photographs and the note, handing them over to Jesse. She studied them in silence, her expression growing increasingly troubled. This is bad. This is really, really bad. Tell us something we don't know, Bobby muttered. No, you don't understand. Jesse pointed at the blurred figure in Lucas's reflection. I know this photography technique. It's deliberate distortion, the kind you use when you want to hide identity but still prove someone was present. I've seen it before in blackmail cases, in evidence collection for corporate espionage. Whoever took this photo is building a legal case. That's what we thought, Veronica said. But a legal case for what? What could possibly be in that vault that's worth all this effort? Jessie was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up, her expression serious. 3 years ago, there were rumors, just whispers, nothing concrete, about Lucas making a deal with the European Council. Something about territory rights, about expanding his influence beyond the eastern seaboard. It never came to anything, officially. But what if it did? What if Lucas has been secretly negotiating with foreign pacts, making deals that violate Continental Accord? Bobby's blood ran cold. Continental Accord was the treaty that governed all werewolf packs in North America, preventing any one alpha from growing too powerful, from making alliances with outside councils that could upset the balance of power. Violating it was grounds for immediate removal from leadership, and possibly execution. If Lucas has documentation of illegal negotiations, Veronica said slowly, if he's been secretly coordinating with European pacts, then he's violated one of the most sacred laws we have, Jessie finished. And whoever's framing Bobby isn't just trying to remove Lucas from power. They're trying to prevent a full-scale pack war. The pieces were finally falling into place. Not a personal vendetta, not just political maneuvering. This was about preventing Lucas's ambition from tearing apart the carefully balanced pack hierarchy that had kept peace for over a century. And Bobby and Tina were collateral damage in a game so much bigger than their tragic love story. So what do we do? Bobby asked. If that vault really does contain evidence of Lucas violating Continental Accord, and if whoever's orchestrating this wants me to find it, then we beat them at their own game, Veronica said. We get into that vault before they expect it. We find the evidence, and we take it straight to the council ourselves, with witnesses and documentation that prove we discovered it legitimately. And if the combination is wrong, Bobby asked, if this is all a trap to get me killed? Veronica's smile was sharp. Then we'd better make sure we don't go in alone. She looked at Jessie. How do you feel about a little breaking and entering? Jessie's grin was feral. Honey, that's my favorite kind of job. When do we start? Tonight, Veronica said, before whoever tried to grab us figures out we're still free. Before Lucas changes his security protocols. Before we run out of time. She turned to Bobby. Are you in? Because once we do this, there's no going back. We're either exposing the biggest scandal in pack politics in a century, or we're signing our own death warrants. Bobby thought about Tina, trapped in Lucas's penthouse, counting down the days until blood right bound her forever to a man who saw her as property. Thought about the terror in her eyes on the Carlisle terrace. Thought about 3 years of running, of hiding, of being too much of a coward to fight for what he loved. I'm in, he said. Let's finish this. Lucas's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Apex Tower in Tribeca. 30,000 square feet of obscene wealth and absolute power. Getting inside would require either a miracle or a death wish. Bobby was betting on both. "Security changes shifts at 2 a.m., Jessie whispered, her fingers flying over a tablet that displayed building schematics she'd somehow acquired in the 3 hours since they'd started planning. "You'll have a 7-minute window between when the night team clocks out and the graveyard shift clocks in. 7 minutes to get from the service elevator to the penthouse, bypass the biometric locks, and access the vault." 7 minutes, Bobby repeated. His wolf was pacing inside his chest, torn between the instinct to run and the desperate need to save Tina. "That's impossible." "It's improbable," Veronica corrected. She was studying the building plans with the focused intensity of someone whose life depended on getting this right. "Which is different. Impossible means it can't be done. Improbable just means we need to be very, very good." They were in Jessie's workshop, a converted warehouse in Brooklyn that looked like it had been furnished by a conspiracy theorist with unlimited funds. Screens displaying security feeds covered one wall. Weapons and equipment lined another. The third wall was entirely dedicated to what appeared to be a collection of fake IDs and security credentials. Bobby had never been more terrified or more grateful in his life. "The biometric locks are the real problem," Jessie continued, zooming in on the penthouse entrance. "Lucas has the place locked down tighter than Fort Knox. Fingerprint, retinal scan, and voice recognition. We need all 3 to get through the door." "I can get us the fingerprints," Veronica said quietly. "Lucas had me handle some documents last week. I lifted a clean print before I returned them." Bobby stared at her. "You've been planning this." "I've been preparing for contingencies," Veronica corrected. "There's a difference. The retinal scan is trickier. We'd need either Lucas himself or—" She stopped, her face going pale. "Or Tina," Bobby finished. "She lives there. She'd have access." "We're not using Tina," Veronica said firmly. "If Lucas catches even a hint that she's involved, he'll—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "So we fake it," Jessie said. "I know a guy who can create synthetic retinal scans good enough to fool most commercial systems. It won't be cheap and it won't be quick, but—" "We don't have time for that," Bobby interrupted. "You said 3 weeks until blood right. For all we know, whoever's orchestrating this is planning to move up the timeline, force Lucas's hand early. We need to get into that vault tonight." "Tonight?" Veronica's voice rose an octave. "Bobby, that's insane! We haven't tested the security protocols, haven't confirmed the vault combination is real, haven't even figured out how to bypass the voice recognition." "The voice recognition won't be a problem," Bobby said quietly. Both women turned to stare at him. "I sound like Lucas." The silence that followed was deafening. "What?" Jessie finally asked. "Not exactly like him," Bobby clarified, "but close enough that voice recognition software might be fooled. It's a beta thing. Males from the same bloodline sometimes have similar vocal patterns. Lucas and I share a common ancestor about 5 generations back. I found out years ago when I was researching pack genealogy." Veronica was studying him with new intensity. "You're saying you could mimic Lucas's voice well enough to fool a biometric lock?" "Maybe. With practice and the right modulation." Bobby met her gaze. "It's a risk, but everything about this is a risk." Jessie pulled up a new screen, this one showing what looked like audio wavelength analysis. "If you can get me a recording of Lucas's voice, I can create a modulator that will make your natural speech pattern match his close enough to fool most systems. Won't be perfect, but it might be good enough." "I have recordings," Veronica said, "from council meetings. He has to submit verbal reports quarterly." She pulled out a flash drive, not the one she'd had earlier, Bobby noted. This was her backup, the information she'd kept hidden even from him. "Here, everything you need to analyze his vocal signature." Jessie grabbed the drive, plugging it into her system. "This is good, really good. Give me 40 minutes and I can have a working modulator ready." "We still need the retinal scan," Bobby pointed out. Veronica and Jessie exchanged a look that made Bobby's wolf sit up and take notice. "There might be another way," Veronica said slowly, "but you're not going to like it. Try me." Lucas keeps tissue samples of all his inner circle. DNA records, retinal maps, fingerprints. Everything he'd need to identify us if something happened. It's stored in his private medical facility on the 42nd floor. Veronica pulled up another set of schematics. "We could access his own retinal scan from there. Use the alphaking's own security protocols against him." Bobby stared at the screen. "You want to break into 2 separate secure locations in the same building, in the same night, using fake credentials and equipment we're throwing together in under an hour?" "Yes," Veronica said simply. "That's the stupidest plan I've ever heard." "You have a better one?" Bobby thought about it. Thought about every alternative, every other path that didn't involve walking into the lion's den with nothing but hope and desperation. Came up empty. "No," he admitted. "I really don't." Jessie's grin was manic. "Then let's get to work. Because if we're doing this, we're doing it right. And that means I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not," Veronica said. "Jessie, if you get caught without proper tech support, you're dead," Jessie interrupted. "I can remote hack some of this, but the really heavy lifting needs to be done on site. You need someone who knows how to bypass electronic locks, disable security cameras, and hack biometric systems in real time. That's me." "She's right," Bobby said. Veronica shot him a glare, but he held firm. "We need her. And more importantly, we need to move now. Before whoever tried to grab us earlier figures out we're planning something." Veronica looked like she wanted to argue. Then she checked her watch and swore. "We have 6 hours until the shift change. 6 hours to prepare, rehearse, and pray this doesn't get us all killed." "So, a normal Tuesday," Jessie said cheerfully. "Bobby, come here. I need to map your vocal range and start building that modulator. Veronica, call your contact at the medical facility. We need building access, and we need it clean. No traces, no records, nothing that ties back to us." For the next 5 hours, Bobby existed in a state of controlled panic. He practiced Lucas's speech patterns until his throat hurt, mimicking the alphaking's aristocratic pronunciation and precise enunciation. Jessie built a small device that looked like a hearing aid but would modulate his voice in real time, making him sound enough like Lucas to fool automated systems. Veronica coordinated their insertion plan with the kind of military precision that made Bobby wonder what exactly she'd done before becoming Lucas's senior advisor. She had contacts everywhere. Security guards who could be bribed, maintenance workers who owed her favors, wolves who were loyal to the pack rather than to Lucas personally. By 1:30 a.m., they were as ready as they'd ever be. "Last chance to back out," Veronica said as they approached the Apex Tower in a stolen maintenance van. She'd changed into a custodial uniform that made her look like any other overnight worker. Jessie wore the same, her pink hair hidden under a baseball cap. Bobby had maintenance coveralls that were slightly too small and smelled like industrial cleaner. They looked ridiculous. They also looked completely unremarkable, which was the point. "I'm not backing out," Bobby said. His wolf was vibrating with nervous energy, ready to bolt or fight at the slightest provocation. "Let's do this." The service entrance was guarded by a single security officer, a young wolf who barely glanced at their forged credentials before waving them through. Step 1, complete. Now they just had to make it to the 42nd floor, access Lucas's medical records, steal his retinal scan data, make it to the penthouse, bypass 3 layers of biometric security, crack open a vault using a combination provided by an unknown enemy, and escape with evidence of treason. No problem. The service elevator moved with agonizing slowness. Bobby counted his heartbeats, trying to calm his wolf, trying to project the kind of confident nonchalance that would keep them from being noticed. Beside him, Jessie hummed under her breath, apparently completely relaxed. "How are you so calm?" Bobby whispered. "Practice," Jessie said. "Also, anti-anxiety meds. Never attempt a high-stakes burglary without chemical assistance." The elevator dinged. 42nd floor. The medical facility was dark, most of the staff long since gone home. Veronica led them through a maze of corridors with the confidence of someone who'd been here before, stopping at a heavy door marked "Archives, Authorized Personnel Only." Jessie pulled out a device that looked like a smartphone crossed with a lockpick. She pressed it against the electronic lock, and Bobby watched numbers scroll across the screen at dizzying speed. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Click. The lock disengaged. "I love technology," Jessie whispered, pulling the door open. The archive room was exactly what Bobby expected. Rows of filing cabinets, secured servers, the kind of climate-controlled environment that housed decades of sensitive medical data. Veronica went straight to a terminal, her fingers flying over the keyboard with practiced ease. "Lucas's records are here." She pulled up a file, and Bobby saw the alphaking's face staring back from a medical profile. Retinal scan data, fingerprints, DNA sequencing. Everything we need. "Can you download it?" Bobby asked. "Already doing it." Veronica pulled out a small external drive, plugging it in. "But this is going to take a few minutes. The files are heavily encrypted." Bobby's wolf stirred uneasily. They were running out of time. The shift change would happen in less than 4 minutes, if they weren't in position when the security gap opened. "We have company," Jessie hissed from her position by the door. 2 guards, headed this way. They're not supposed to be on this floor." Veronica's hands stilled over the keyboard. "How long until they reach us?" 90 seconds, maybe less. Bobby made a decision. "You two stay here, finish the download. I'll lead them away." "Bobby, that's the only option." He was already moving toward the door. "Get that data and get to the rendezvous point. I'll meet you there." He slipped into the corridor before Veronica could argue, his enhanced hearing picking up the approaching footsteps. 2 guards, like Jesse said, moving with the careful precision of professionals who'd been alerted to something wrong. Bobby's mind raced. He needed to draw them away from the archive room, needed to give Veronica time to finish the download and escape, which meant he stepped into their line of sight, deliberately clumsy, playing the part of a maintenance worker who'd gotten lost. "Oh, thank God," Bobby said, letting his voice rise slightly with false relief. "I've been wandering around for 20 minutes trying to find the damn electrical panel. My supervisor's going to kill me if I don't get this circuit breaker reset before—" "This floor is restricted," one of the guards interrupted. He was young, but his eyes were sharp, suspicious. "How'd you get past security?" "Security? I just came up the service elevator like always. Look, I've got my credentials right." Bobby made a show of patting his pockets. Then his eyes widened in fake panic. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no. I must have left my ID badge in the van. Please, I can't lose this job. I've got 3 kids and—" "Come with us," the second guard said, his hand moving to the weapon at his hip. "We need to verify your story." Perfect. Bobby let them escort him back toward the elevators, away from the archive room, buying Veronica and Jesse the time they needed. He kept up a steady stream of nervous chatter, playing the worried worker perfectly while his wolf counted down the seconds until shift change. 2 minutes. The guards led him to a security office on the 40th floor. One of them picked up a phone, presumably to call Bobby's fake supervisor and verify his credentials. 1 minute. "You know what?" Bobby said, letting his voice shift slightly, letting the facade crack. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." The guard with the phone frowned. "Sir, just wait a moment while we—" Bobby's fist caught him in the jaw before he could finish the sentence. Not hard enough to cause serious damage. Bobby wasn't trying to kill anyone, but enough to drop him. The second guard reached for his weapon, but Bobby was faster, his wolf-enhanced speed letting him disarm the man and pin him against the wall. "Sorry about this," Bobby said quietly, then brought his knee up hard into the guard's solar plexus. The man crumpled. 30 seconds. Bobby was out the door and sprinting for the service stairs before either guard could recover enough to raise an alarm. His phone buzzed. A text from Jesse. "Download complete. We're out. Where the hell are you?" Bobby typed back while running. "Had to improvise. Heading to penthouse now. Start the 7-minute timer." He hit the stairs at a dead run, taking them 3 at a time, his wolf driving him faster than any human could move. The penthouse was on the 50th floor. He had maybe 2 minutes before those guards woke up and called for backup. 2 minutes to get into the most secure location in the building, access a vault using a combination from an unknown source, and find evidence that could either save Tina or get them both killed. Bobby burst onto the 50th floor just as his phone timer hit 2 a.m. The security gap had opened. The penthouse door loomed ahead, imposing and final. Bobby approached it with hands that weren't quite steady, pulling out the forged fingerprints Veronica had created. The scanner beeped, processing the synthetic print. Green light. 1 down. The retinal scanner was next. Bobby held up his phone, displaying the data Veronica had stolen, praying that Jesse's hack would work, that the system would accept a digital recreation instead of an actual eyeball. The scanner's laser swept across the screen once, twice. Red light. Bobby's heart stopped. The scanner swept again. Green light. 2 down. which left only the voice recognition. Bobby activated the modulator Jesse had built, feeling the small device vibrate against his throat. He took a breath, forcing himself to adopt Lucas's precise enunciation, his aristocratic pronunciation. Lucas Peter, Alpha King of the Eastern Territory, authorization code Omega 77 Delta. The system processed his voice. Bobby could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, could feel sweat running down his spine despite the climate control. Green light. The penthouse door opened with a whisper of expensive engineering. Bobby stepped inside and immediately knew something was wrong. The penthouse wasn't empty. Tina stood in the center of the living room, wearing a silk robe over what looked like pajamas, her eyes wide with shock and terror. "Bobby?" she whispered. "What are you? You can't be here. Lucas will—" "Where is he?" Bobby interrupted, his wolf on high alert, scanning for threats. "Council emergency meeting. He left an hour ago, but he could be back any—" Tina stopped, her face going pale. "You're here for the vault. Someone told you about the vault." It wasn't a question. "Tina, I need you to listen to me." "No." She was backing away, shaking her head. "No, Bobby, you don't understand. That vault, whatever you think is in there, whatever someone told you you'd find, it's a trap. It's all a trap." Bobby's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "The photographs, the anonymous messages, the convenient security gaps and perfect timing." Tina's voice was rising, panic bleeding through. "Lucas knows, Bobby. He knows someone's trying to frame us, and he's been using it. He wanted you to break in here, wanted you to think you were being clever because—" Behind Bobby, the penthouse door slammed shut, and Lucas Peter stepped out of the shadows, his ice-blue eyes glittering with terrible satisfaction. "Because I needed proof," the Alpha King finished, his voice soft and deadly. "Proof that my senior advisor was a traitor. Proof that my Omega's ex-lover couldn't stay away. Proof that I was justified in what I'm about to do." Bobby's wolf surged forward, ready to fight, but Lucas moved faster than anything Bobby had ever seen. One moment, the Alpha King was 10 feet away. The next, Bobby was on his knees, Lucas's hand wrapped around his throat with crushing force. 3 years, Lucas said conversationally, as if he wasn't currently choking the life out of Bobby. 3 years I've been waiting for you to make a move. 3 years of watching Tina pine for you, of dealing with her tears and her defiance and her stubborn refusal to accept that she belongs to me." His grip tightened. "But now I have everything I need." Black spots were dancing in Bobby's vision. His wolf was howling, clawing, trying to force a shift that would give him the strength to fight back. But Lucas's dominance was absolute, crushing, the kind of power that came from 5 centuries of evolution. "Lucas, please!" Tina's voice, desperate and breaking. "Please, he was trying to help me. He didn't know." "Didn't know that I've been orchestrating this entire scenario?" Lucas laughed, the sound echoing off the penthouse's high ceilings. "Didn't know that every photograph, every anonymous message, every convenient coincidence was designed to bring him here, to this moment." He released Bobby, letting him collapse to the floor, gasping for air. Then Lucas pulled out his phone, and Bobby's heart sank as he realized what was about to happen. "Veronica," Lucas said into the phone, his voice pleasant and calm. I assume you're listening. Your little team has been very entertaining to watch, but the game ends now. You have two choices. Turn yourself in to my security team within the next 10 minutes, or I'll invoke Alpha's right and execute Bobby Richards for breaking into my home with intent to harm my mate. He paused, listening. Bobby couldn't hear Veronica's response, but he could imagine the calculations running through her mind, the desperate search for a way out that didn't exist. "Excellent choice," Lucas said. "I'll see you shortly." He ended the call and turned his attention back to Bobby. "Stand up." Bobby forced himself to his feet, his throat bruised and his wolf snarling with impotent rage. He looked at Tina and saw tears streaming down her face, saw the hopelessness in her eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her. "I'm so sorry." "How touching," Lucas said. "But apologies won't save you, Bobby. Nothing will. Because in approximately," he checked his watch, "6 hours, the council will convene an emergency session. I'll present them with surveillance footage of you breaking into my home, with testimony from my Omega confirming your obsessive behavior, with evidence that you've been working with my traitorous advisor to undermine my authority." "That's not," Bobby started. "And then," Lucas continued, as if Bobby hadn't spoken, "I'll invoke blood right. Tonight. Not 3 weeks from now. Tonight. With the full blessing of the council and every legal justification I need." The words hit Bobby like a physical blow. "You can't. The spring equinox was always a lie," Lucas said softly. "Did you really think I'd announce my true timeline? That I'd give you 3 weeks to scheme and plot and try to save her?" He laughed again. "Bobby, I've been 5 steps ahead of you this entire time. Every move you made, every plan you formed, every desperate gambit, I knew about all of it. Because I wanted you to try. I wanted you to believe you had a chance." He moved to Tina, pulling her against his side with possessive brutality. "Because the only thing better than owning her body is breaking her spirit. And the best way to do that? Let her watch the man she loves fail to save her. Let her see you tried and lost. That I was always stronger, always smarter, always in control." Bobby's wolf was howling, but there was nothing he could do. Lucas had won, had been winning since the moment Bobby stepped foot in New York. "However," Lucas said, and Bobby's head snapped up at the sudden shift in his tone, "I'm not completely without mercy. You broke into my home, Bobby. You allied with a traitor. You attempted to access my private vault. You've been a thorn in my side for 3 years. By pack law, I have every right to execute you immediately." "Then do it," Bobby said quietly. His eyes were locked on Tina's face, on the tears that wouldn't stop falling. "Just get it over with." "Or," Lucas continued, "you could fight me for her, officially. A formal challenge, witnessed by the council, adjudicated according to ancient pack law. You win, she goes free. I win," his smile was sharp, "I bind her through blood right in front of you, and you get to live with the knowledge that you failed her twice." The offer hung in the air like poison. A formal challenge. Bobby versus Lucas, Alpha King, 500-year-old predator with power Bobby couldn't begin to match. It would be slaughter. It would be public humiliation on a scale that would destroy what little pride Bobby had left. It would also be the only chance Tina had. Bobby looked at her, saw the silent plea in her eyes, the terror and the hope and the desperate love that 3 years hadn't diminished. Saw everything he'd ever wanted and everything he'd already lost. Made his choice. "I accept," Bobby said. "When?" Lucas's smile was triumphant. "Dawn. 3 hours from now. In front of the full council, with every witness I can summon. I want everyone to see what happens to wolves who dare challenge their king." He pulled Tina toward the bedroom, but paused at the threshold. "Oh, and Bobby? The vault combination you were given? 173829? Those are the dates of my first 2 blood rights. The Omegas who came before Tina. They both died screaming when I died and was resurrected through pack magic a century ago. Just thought you should know what you're trying to save her from." Then they were gone, and Bobby was alone in the penthouse with the sound of Tina's sobbing echoing from behind a closed door. His phone buzzed. "Veronica. We heard everything. Jesse's working on a plan. Don't give up." But Bobby wasn't thinking about plans or escape routes or last-minute saves. He was thinking about the look in Tina's eyes, the terror of facing bloodright, the desperate hope that someone, that he, could save her. And he was thinking about what Lucas had said, that Bobby had failed her twice, once when he ran, and soon when he died trying to fight for her. Bobby walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, watching the city wake up in the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere out there, Veronica and Jesse were planning something desperate. Somewhere out there, the council was gathering to witness a challenge that everyone knew Bobby couldn't win. And somewhere in this penthouse, Tina was crying, trapped with a monster who'd orchestrated everything, who'd played them all like puppets, who'd already won before the game even started. Bobby pressed his palm against the cold glass. "I'm sorry," he whispered again, "but I won't run this time, even if it kills me. I won't run." Dawn was 3 hours away, and with it, the end of everything. What do you think? Can Bobby possibly survive a fight against an alpha king with 5 centuries of power? Or is there a twist coming that no one sees? Drop your thoughts below. Bobby's challenge has been accepted. Dawn is 3 hours away, and the Alpha King has never lost a fight. But did you notice what Tina whispered when Lucas dragged her away? There's more to this story than you think. If you want to know whether Bobby survives the ultimate battle, whether Tina escapes bloodright, and who's really been pulling the strings, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button if you're Team Bobby, and drop a comment telling me, can love actually defeat 5 centuries of power? And don't miss the next werewolf fantasy story showing on your screen. Because in our world, Omegas don't stay victims for long.